All right. I think we're good there from a standpoint here of microphones. So I am Greg Stachura. I appreciate everyone coming for the drag, drop, defend, making security scripts accessible to everybody. So with that, a little bit of intro about me. So like I said, I'm Greg Stachura, 20 plus years in career in IT and security. I have experience in a wide range of industries, worked in pharmaceutical, healthcare, higher ed, finance, et cetera. I've helped run some Fortune 500 SOCs, as well as my main focus has been on blue team throughout my career. Whether it's been SOC, whether it's been detection engineering, threat hunting, tool development, incident response, things of that nature. So kind of as we're talking about what we're going to talk about, this is some of my qualifications where I think, where I come up with the ideas, why I think this is the right approach, all that industry, why I consider myself an expert in this area. Doesn't mean I'm right, but that's my qualifications. So a little bit about this presentation. The backdrop there, that picture is taken in Dublin at the Hellfire Club, a nice little hike for former adventurers. So that kind of inspired this whole theme as we go out from an adventure archaeology standpoint. So, but with that, talk about what we're going to talk about. So why are we focusing in on scripting in the first place? What are the challenges people have implementing that scripts across their organization from a SOC perspective? What are the solutions we have here? And then we're going to go on a little bit of an adventure. We'll wrap up and have questions. If you have questions throughout, happy to take them. Don't have to just wait till the end. We should have plenty of time to get through whatever we need to get through. I only go on so many side tangents, but I think we'll keep it in the time allotted. So, all right. So why scripting? Go forward here. Why scripting? If you look at the kind of the current state of SecOps from multiple different perspectives, you kind of have really your security operations perspective when you look at the state of SOC, and you also have an executive perspective. From a security operations perspective, what we're seeing is a ton of alert volumes. Alert volumes keep driving up. More products mean more alerts are being discovered, more logs are rolling in, more alerts are being discovered, and it rolls into a lot more of what organizations are seeing, and that's increased response times, burnout amongst team members, as well as alert fatigue, other mental health issues that are really hurting some of our SOC analysts. So with that, we have also some talent shortages that we're seeing in the industry, whether it's skills gaps in general, not enough people. All these fun things, to spin up an analyst takes a lot of time and a lot of investment. We're also seeing a lot of disparate systems. So, you may have 10 different tools, security vendors you're working with. There is some tool convergence that some folks are trying to push on. Even some of the vendors here trying to get you all bought into their ecosystem. That can debate of whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But either way, there's a lot of that happening, and with those different systems is a lot of context switching, which drives up your response time, which drives up the amount of time it takes you to actually triage incidents, et cetera, et cetera. So all of that stuff really boils down to what executives are looking at. All of those things affect whether it's reputational hits that they really care about, and why do they care about reputational hits, or other factors of driving down business impacts and things of that nature is profits and budgets and whatnot. So a lot of that centers around money. So all these things you have to look at is there's a cost to an incident. Not just from a personnel standpoint and them focusing in on it and you have to pay them, but also from business impact, a cost of how your operations in general, just to triage stuff, even if there isn't an incident. So all these things are factor into your profitability, and that's a lot of what executives are kind of focused in on. So a lot of times when you have to have these conversations with them, you have to have focus in their talk in their terms, and alert volumes, response times. That's great. They kind of get it. But they're thinking about it from the profitability standpoint. So that's where we are. Costs are being driven up across the industry. Security operations is getting more money, which is a good thing. We as a whole haven't really gotten a lot of the funds that we've needed in order to carry out our jobs. But with those funds, increasing in some scenarios, I'm sure some of you aren't getting more funds. It seems to continually happen as well. There's more stuff to do. We have to make systems more secure. We have to, triage all of these alerts that are flowing in. Someone just decided to buy a new product. You have to implement it, and you have to, triage those alerts that are flowing in. All these things are happening, so all the costs are going up for everybody. So what are some solutions? What do we do with all this? You have the option to, kind of two options, or really three if you combine the two goals overall, which is reduce your workload or work faster. With all the stuff that's happening, that's really your kind of two options. Now, working faster could mean you simplify your workflows, you get through these things faster, you simplify your tool knowledge, meaning you centralize stuff so you don't have as many tools, you lower your switching costs, or your context switching, essentially, which will then increase or allow you to get through more, or increase your throughput. You can also increase staff. Again, increasing capacity increases throughput as well. So there's a bunch of different ways, in general, to do some of these things. But as a whole, you kind of have, you can do better tuning, so you can get rid of some of the alerts. You're reducing the amount of things that you have to do. Scripting, automation, increasing capacity, all those things are other options you can do. Like I said, we're going to focus a little bit more on the scripting side. Not that those other options aren't good, but not that those other options aren't good, but we want to increase focus a little bit on scripting, mainly from the aspect of, it can help you simplify tool knowledge. So if you can not have to go into a tool, but instead just run a script to get the data you need, that can simplify the knowledge you need, expertise you need in any given tool. You can simplify your workflows. It can make you your actions repeatable. So not only are you just kicking off a script and doing the same 5 things to gather enrich your incidents, or block an attack, things of that nature, you're ensuring that it's the same thing every time. So your quality can at least stay the same, or in some instances get better. Instead of your analysts doing different things across response capabilities, they're doing the same thing every single time at a bare minimum. So that can help from the quality standpoint of your incidents and get make sure you get time to resolve down even further. So scripting can impact a lot of these different areas, especially on the work faster. Arguably, it doesn't necessarily reduce your workload, from the standpoint of like the volume of work, but it could help you get through things a little bit faster. So what are the challenges some folks are facing here from having scripts? Because if you're just a one-person shop, it's really not that bad to introduce scripting into your environment because you're the only person running those. If you're not a one-person shop, you have a bunch of other difficult challenges ahead. It could be whether it's, what language are you using? Are you using Python? Are you using PowerShell, Bash? If you have multiple people, are they using different languages to develop these tools? What about your OS? Are you using Mac, using Windows, are you using Linux? Is everyone in your team using the same type of system? What about storage? Where are these scripts going to be stored? You can have central repositories, you can have a VM. All these things are things to consider. You can have dependencies in part of the scripts. If you look at Python in general, which we'll look at in a little while, you may have to import different libraries. That can be impactful. Not everyone may know how to set up a Python environment or update it. So that can cause challenges. And then, like I said, context switching. So still with scripting, you'd have to get over to a console to actually run something in theory. So again, a lot of these things, these 5 different areas really, if you focus in on them, can really impact being effective, because not all of your analysts are going to know how to script. Not all of them are going to know easily or be comfortable at a terminal. And should they? I mean, that's the other question in general. Is should your analysts be that comfortable at a terminal? Do they have to know every single thing about all the tools that they're using? Ideally, yes. But with the talent shortage that we have, with some of the skills gaps we have, what if we could let our analysts, instead of focusing on being experts at navigating and working in the tools, they're now experts at analysis. I mean, that's what you're paying them to do, is analyze, look at the data, look at what's happening, and make a call. Is this good? Is it bad? Do I need to take action? Do I not need to take action? So instead of, you start to remove some of those barriers, you can let them focus in on what they really need to focus in on. So what's the kind of solution here? Obviously, not surprisingly, as many people are talking about in presentations, is AI. So that is one area to focus in on. It can help centralize investigation platform. It can be a centralized investigation platform. It integrates with other automation platforms really easily. So again, you can get time to value in your tools. So if you've already integrated this script, if you want to make use of it in several different areas, writing a prompt as part of your automation SOAR capabilities is a lot easier, and a lot more people will be able to do that than having to actually integrate a script into your Demistos, your logic apps, all these other things. So it's a little bit easier and kind of, again, democratizes some of these things, makes it more accessible for people to plumb stuff together. You also have that learning curve lessons. Again, that's the standpoint of someone's just sitting at the console. They can do natural language typing to get the data they need. They don't have to know how to use Python or PowerShell or Bash or spin up a Linux host, to run these scripts, or sign in over here, sign in over there. Lessens the learning curve. Also, obviously, with some AI capabilities, it can kind of help you dig in a little bit quicker, a little bit easier. Still have to check the data, make sure that it's not hallucinating, telling you to do something, or looking at different tool sets and telling you something wrong. But it is something that can help that learning curve. And then finally, you standardize your runtime and platform. So instead, like we were talking about before, what language am I using, what OS am I using? That's all kind of obfuscated. You don't have to worry about that. In general, if we just kind of take a step back, so we're talking about introducing scripts into AI. AI in general, where does it fit in your SOC? I think it's really important to know for anyone who's a SOC manager, even CISOs, et cetera, you kind of need to know where AI is going to fit in your security organization. As people who might be working in the SOC or be managing the SOC, having that ability to kind of help figure that out and kind of manage up is going to be really important for a lot of you. It helps enhance with, like I said, natural language querying. It can accelerate triage investigation time, again, because you don't have to switch tools. If you're utilizing it more of a centralized investigative platform, you can automate repetitive tasks. You can do a lot of stuff faster. Knowledge management, again, if you have folks who forget about workflows or forget about documentation, AI doesn't. It's going to look at all that stuff repeatedly. It's not perfect yet, but hey, it could make sure that as it's investigating something for you, or hey, how do I do this? It's going to find that information and get it back to the user in a lot quicker fashion than they're going to have to go through your knowledge management. Because I don't know if yours is anything like much organizations I've worked in. Finding a document you need, even with search capabilities at your fingertips, can be a real challenge. Let AI do that for you. It could also be a trainer, a coach. It can run first pass engineer, et cetera. So basically, if you have a new analyst, it can kind of help guide them a little bit. It can prop them up a little bit. They're still going to need to deep dive and dig into those responses and make sure they're accurate, but it can help jumpstart them a little bit and expand their knowledge. You can almost think about it as it's can hopefully get to the point of it's almost like a tier 1 analyst in its knowledge, and folks just continually help train it, but it can actually help train others too. Like I said, there's some myths here just to dispel. Like the whole goal of AI, at least in my eyes right now, isn't to replace your tier 1. It's to augment them, to help them, to make them more effective, to make them work better, and to make their lives a lot better. They can focus in on hunting and all these other things if we can get all these other alerts that are firing like crazy out of their queue. It's not something I look at right now to find bleeding edge attacks. Yes, you can train ML models, you can do all this other stuff. Great. That's not what this is about. This is about doing investigation from a SOC perspective, but it's not trying to, hey, let's roll AI in and all our problems will be solved. That's definitely not the case. So one, again, kind of still on the AI topic, in order to make the best use of AI, as you're trying to formulate your plan, if you haven't formulated your plan, look at a data-centric SOC architecture. It can be really impactful. So this is, essentially what it revolves around is a little bit of a data lake. So having all of your data kind of centralized in that one area from all these different tools, easily accessible at your fingertips, is going to be really important. You can also, again, AI is down there in the bottom circled there. It's only going to be one piece of the puzzle, but as you're starting to use it, it can, again, interface with your data lake to do queries, to run stuff. But it can also then, at that top layer, those data sources, as we're going to talk about in a little bit, you can utilize it in order to run stuff, whether it's response capabilities or pull more information, because maybe you can't pull all the logs you need out of those tools to put them in a data lake, but you can go talk to them via scripts, via API calls, et cetera. So the AI can kind of tunnel and flow through, but having that data lake-centric approach is going to be extremely impactful, and you're going to make the most out of AI. You're going to have data available at its fingertips, and you're going to be able to train it in order to find that data. And it's going to be very impactful to your investigations. It's going to speed up a lot of things. So having that type of approach, again, as you're trying to formulate how you want to roll AI in your environment, these are kind of some important considerations here. So. That being said, now we've got some of that formality out of the way. Let's go on a little bit of an adventure. I don't know how many remember any Choose Your Own Adventure books, but we're going to do a little bit of that because there's several different options for implementing AI, especially when it comes to how you're going to implement scripts so that AI can make use of them. You got to balance costs. You got to balance your implementation and maintenance times. You got to balance effectiveness, all those things. So which one is the right approach? So if we look at it a little bit of a, for lack of a better term, case study, if we have a quest, which is an analyst has created a cool new script that checks the graph API for a cap that enables device code flow. So can I make use of this? So the underlying piece here is device code flow. You don't really want that enabled. You can definitely still have it from a cap perspective if you have other controls in place. But in general, we recommend, hey, if you don't need device code flow, shut it off. So in the midst of an incident, it may be valuable for you to check that. Is there any scenario where this user could use device code flow? Is there a cap that allows that for them? And so someone wrote a script, queries the graph API, gets all the stuff for that user, looks through all the policies, and finds this. Really simple, really easy, really quick. You don't have to visually go through this. It can really speed up. Just running this script in general could really speed up someone's effectiveness. So if we look at the script in general, you're not going to be able to read all this. It's going to slowly go through. There's a lot of text here. But it does it. Had AI help a little bit, had a few folks kind of implement it. But overall, what it does here down at the bottom is it essentially gets passed in a name. It'll go look that name up, grab an ID, and then it'll gather a whole bunch of data. It'll look at all the groups that are associated, all the roles that are associated with it, and it'll look through all the caps to find all the stuff associated with the caps that apply to that user, and then it'll look for device code flow stuff, and then you get back out of this all the caps that are affected for this user that you might want to take a gander at. So that's the piece of the script. In order to run this, you need a Python environment, wherever that be. Could be Windows, Linux, Mac. You need, if we look back at the top here, you need import requests, import OS, and import sys. So those are the libraries that you need to install if they're not already installed. And then you can actually execute this code. And there's also some other Azure app registration and a few things else you need to register in order to access the Graph API. But in general, from a scripting perspective, that's what you need in order to actually run this. So it's not terribly difficult. But if you have a bunch of analysts, you got to, again, how are they going to run it? Where are you going to store this? What if there's updates? All those fun things you got to keep track of. And this could be one of like 20 different scripts that you have to deal with. So option one to run this. We're going to go easy mode. We're going to a little bit from an adventurer standpoint. This is Dora. For those of you who don't have kids, it's a Nickelodeon cartoon, and everything is super easy. She has a backpack, and backpack can do whatever it wants. Stuff comes out of it, and it just works. So this is everything on easy mode. So what does that translate to from running a script in AI? How do we get easy mode? Copilot, security copilot to be exact. So again, there's the balance between good, fast, and cheap, or inexpensive. The X is probably a little too far to the left when it comes to inexpensive. With security copilot, it is not cheap. It should probably be even almost all out of that triangle, but it is effective. I'll show you a demo in a minute here, but it is good, and it can get you what you want quickly. And what that looks like is you essentially set up in your own subscription, so all this stuff doesn't have to leave your environment. In your own subscription, you can create a function app or a web app, drop that script in there, The script can run as a function app or a web app. I'll show you some high-level code at the end of this to how to do that. And then all you do is there's a few files you have to configure, and you load a plugin within Security Copilot. You can do custom plugins. And that plugin will then allow you to query and basically run that script as it's exposed to the internet. You put in API keys, of course, and stuff. But you run that script, the output goes back to Copilot, and Copilot will help format it, make it look nice, give you whatever you need out of it, and then you can run another command off of that data, et cetera. But whatever you want to do. So it makes it really, really easy. Is almost a go-between between you and the Graph API. So it allows that script to run and Copilot to do all the work there. So how we modify this script, this is actually a video here. So you can see there's a few more files on the left-hand side here. It's not just one anymore. So we have a bunch of stuff that's created. We have to add some function app code here, which is a couple pieces here. We're now calling a function. And we're now, instead of actually gathering just a string that's a username, we're taking in HTTP requests. Because again, this is all happening via web app, so there's API calls, so it's all HTTP requests. So we have to then parse that request in order to get our username that we're going to search off of. So once that's done, your script's modified. There's a couple more files here that it'll look at. It also has to send back an HTTP response. So really easy to put together. There's a couple more files, this host JSON, and then your requirements. All of this stuff can be generated on the fly if you want to, based out of Visual Studio Code. You don't have to know all this stuff. It's really easy. You could just drop your code in and you change like those 6 lines, and suddenly this will be functional as a function app once you deploy it out into Azure. The last piece here is just, and this API key is now rendered mute, so I don't really care that I just exposed it. But this last thing is how you would call it. So from Python, you could call it, and actually, whether you want to run a logic app with this. So not only can you just have AI use it, it's now functionally available for anything that can do curl commands or whatnot. So, but to run it via AI, all we're going to do, like I said, is have the ability to create this as a plugin. A couple more YAML files, which I'm not going to show here, and then we can upload it as a plugin in Copilot and run it. So if we want to look at how it's actually run, I'll jump to that in the next slide. But first, as another example of this, this is a script or plugin called Copilot that myself and Mike Pinch wrote. It allows you to query CrowdStrike utilizing their API and actually make use of data from CrowdStrike within Security Copilot. So it hadn't been done before. We saw a lot of our customers, again, as a security consultant, we help a lot of different organizations. We saw organizations that weren't just in the Microsoft ecosystem and thought they could have a lot of value out of something like CrowdStrike. That's their main EDR, so why not let them run with it and integrate with it? So we also found that the API wasn't very conducive to just exposing the API directly to Copilot. We had to run some interference to help a bunch of things like, hey, I want to look up this host. Well, you need to get an ID first and then do this. Now you can make your API call. So a lot of these things were a little bit more complex. So we wrote essentially, like I said, in here, a function app that can do that for you. And it can perform a whole bunch of stuff. It can block, unblock IOCs, isolate hosts, get information on a host, can do a whole bunch of different things. It can even look at your do a mini health check to see, hey, do I have any policies that are pretty terrible that I might want to take a look at? So again, can do a bunch of things. This is another example. This is actually something that's live and out there. If you look up Copilot, you'll find instructions on how to install it. It's a free tool. We put out there, there's actually an agent that just got deployed out with Security Copilot that you can also make use of. But again, another example of how you can use Security Copilot really easily in order to do some of these things. If I look at actually running this, what does this look like live in Security Copilot? So this is the couple functions that we have here. Scroll all the way down here. Down at the bottom, there's Copilot for CrowdStrike by SRA, and then this device code flow cap checker. So both of these are plugins that we added to our instance. I'm the only one who can run them. Very minimal configuration settings for this. I just had to tell it where my API endpoint was. and then I have a key that's in the value there so that it can access it, and without that key, you can't access it. So configurations really easily on both of these. It'll go through and grab the other one just to kind of show you the same thing. Configuration steps are the same, just different endpoints that it's hitting. And then it will go through and we'll actually run it. And so what it's doing now, if you can't read it, it says I need to know if this user, which happens to be a test user of mine, has any caps with device code flow enabled. So it knows to actually pick that script to run. It'll go run it, and it'll format it really nice in the end for this. So you can see 3 policies that someone might want to take a look at. So very quick, really easy to do. A couple examples here off of CrowPilot. If we want to get information on a CrowdStrike host, I think it's CS test VM, it'll go through, it'll run everything. It takes a few seconds to run and actually process the results, but then it'll format it really nice and lovely like this. And you'll see a host name, device IDs, all the fun stuff, what policies does it have associated with it, and then this just goes and actually isolates the host just because. So with that, a quick little demo there. It's pretty powerful, so you can do stuff really quickly. Time to market on that one's pretty nice. The next option, again, Uncharted, if we're going Nathan Drake here. Just like for video games, it's a little bit still on easy mode. It's not completely open world. You're still guided down a given path. You can't go off map too easily. Is the next step in evolution in this, if you want to do it, kind of more effectively, is to use a code repository for all this. So you can utilize a code repository, and anytime you update it, have check-ins, all that stuff, your app service, or use it as an app service instead of a web app or function app, it'll pull that code down and update it. So it's easier to maintain the scripts this way. So that's why again, you're still using Security Copilot, but your maintenance on the, having all these function apps and app services, et cetera, is going to be a little bit easier. But option 3, as we'll jump into, is Goonies. So again, you still have a map, but the clues are a little bit tougher to kind of piece together. So it's not a talking map, but it's going to be a little bit more challenge here. Hence why we're going to get more difficult as time goes on. That's Azure AI Foundry is kind of the next evolution and phase of that. So with Azure AI Foundry, like I said, it's kind of in the middle. It's good. It's fast. It's somewhat cheaper. It's definitely a lot cheaper than Security Copilot. And if you haven't taken a look at it recently, there is a lot more functionality to it that you can do. Now, like I said, we're going to focus a little bit on some of the Microsoft stack. There's other products out there. Microsoft in general, as a caveat, has a bunch of other tools, like Logic apps, like Azure Data Explorer, and other things that you can utilize in your stack. So that can be highly impactful for organizations if you don't have to jump around to interface with stuff. That doesn't mean your security tooling has to be all within that stack, but just from an ecosystem of abilities in order to manage your ecosystem, that is somewhat impactful, which is why we're talking a little bit more on Microsoft's side. But with Azure AI Foundry, you can create agents, you can create models. It helps simplify a lot of this for you. And if you look at some of this is like agent playgrounds. If you want to mess around with stuff, create your own agents, mess with chat models, embed some prompts, do system prompts, see how it's going. You have the agents, an agent playground. You also have chat playgrounds and a bunch of other stuff that you can really mess with. So even your analysts, if you want to, you can expose some of this stuff and still make use of it without having to build necessarily a chat interface if you're comfortable with your analysts just being in the playground setting in here in AI instead of, it's not necessarily, this is more for building stuff, but you technically can use it in production. It's just not necessarily recommended because, well, it's not like a production workflow. It's, like I said, more apt for development, but you can still ask it questions and it can get responses back to you. So, but overall, AI Foundry is another option. Again, helps simplify things, a little bit of a step in the right direction. I have a demo of another thing that I used AI Foundry to build, but it's between option 3 and option 4 here. Option 4, from an adventurer standpoint, being the hardest, but also some of the most effective and a little bit sexier. So with that, you're a true adventurer. You like to do things the hard way, but it pays off in the end. So let's build your own. And so obviously it's going to be a little less expensive to build your own, depending on how you factor in costs than it might be to do Copilot. It's not going to be nearly as fast, though, to get that to market. And by market, I mean just implement it in your program. but it could be extremely effective for a lot of organizations. If you have the ability to do custom web apps, things of that nature, if you know your folks can make use of Fast API, all these things, it can be really helpful and impactful if they can build essentially a front end for this. Now there are folks who are doing this already, so you don't have to, and you can buy some of those things. The SaaS solutions are offering. I know because we are working on some that can do all this stuff. So it is entirely possible for you to do it yourself, as well as you also can make use of other vendors that are doing that for you. And still, even though you're purchasing this or whatnot, it is something that you can make use of, and it helps stitch all of these other things together. As a quick example, so this is a dead simple example of a chat prompt interface, but it allows you to utilize Azure AI Foundry agents on the back end that make use of all these tools and these web apps and function apps for it. So I'll hit play in a minute. This is literally just an HTML page. This is not the product that my organization has been building and working on. It is a crazy simple thing, and all it really does is an HTML page that has some Python code on the back end that'll query out some API calls to Azure AI Foundry in order to send messages back and forth. So if I click play on this, this will go through our device code app checker. So I need to, if you can't see it, I need to know if user Greg Stachura at SRADev has any caps with device code float enabled, including some misspellings here. And it says it does. It has 3, but it didn't tell me. So I'm going to ask it to tell me, and it will tell me. So there's the ones that I might need to check. I also implemented too just the ability to query if you have a data lake. Like ADX as an example, we use Azure Data Explorer for data lake capabilities. If you have that, you can also have your AI perform queries in it. And so I just told it straight up, go run this query, which is hit the NetFlow table and give me back 10 results. And there it is. Doesn't look pretty, but it's there. Obviously, this is where the challenge comes in if you're building a custom web app. Security Copilot or some others are going to make this look a lot prettier from a display perspective coming back to you. You'd have to account for that on your own if you're doing custom development. So not something I want to look at as an analyst, but this is strictly a proof of concept you can get spun up in like a day, if less than that, to start utilizing AI and get these scripts out there. Again, what this does is all you're doing is sending a message out to Azure AI Foundry, and you're telling it to say, hey, utilize these 2 web apps. They're both actually function apps. Utilize these two apps. One is the device code checker. Here's how you access it. Here's how where you go to it. The second one is utilized is this ADX function, and literally the ADX code is like 4 lines. But go run scripts, whatever it says back from an SQL perspective, or a KQL perspective. Run that and return the results to me. Not saying this isn't susceptible to like an SQL style injection attack, but we're not really trying to build that in at the moment because we're doing a POC just for this. So from a product standpoint, if you're getting that from a vendor, that would I'm sure be dealt with. But from this perspective, it is something that you can make use of. I did at the bottom here, just to give you a little bit of, I took the HTML and some of the backend calls from someone on GitHub because no code is ever built out of scratch anymore. And you make use of everyone else's. So all this is just a little bit of a change in skin and some underlying changes under it. But it kind of demonstrates you have a lot of capabilities out there if you want to do some of this stuff in-house. And the benefit of all of this is none of this has data really leaving your environment. Obviously the Azure AI Foundry is where you're sending the data, but that technically can live in your tenant, in your subscriptions, in your resource groups, et cetera. So it's never leaving your possession. It may leave the premises, but not actually. It's still in your cloud environment within Microsoft. So you can do all this stuff, and you don't have to send your data elsewhere. I think that's another strict advantage of running scripts within AI, especially depending on how you're deploying that AI solution out there. So why are we doing all this? Again, as a little refresher, we want to unify our investigation platform without going single vendor. So we don't want to have to, if we like CrowdStrike, we don't have to get off CrowdStrike. We don't have to get off Sentinel-1 if we like Sentinel-1. But we want to make use of it. We don't want to have our analysts be an expert in Proofpoint, be an expert in CrowdStrike, be an expert in Splunk, be an expert in all these different tools just to do their job effectively. We want to simplify their workflows, let analysts focus on analysis. Again, and kind of go back to that topic I talked about before, is let your analysts do the work that they can do. Let them reason. Don't have them, the most frustrating thing as an analyst when you're trying to do stuff at an incident is trying to get the data out. If you remove that barrier, they can move quicker, they can be more effective, and they'll be happier, not only because it'll free up their time to hopefully hunt and do other fun stuff, but they don't have to sit there and bang their head against the wall just to get the data they need in order to make a call. Also, again, enable your AI for future expansion. If you go to that data-centric model, can be really impactful, and all of this can kind of help the time to value of your tools, increase. And by that, I mean essentially, like I said, if you have a store platform, so things of that nature, you can make use of that by integrating it with your AI. So you send calls from that to AI, and that is running the scripts for you. Or you're also doing it from the standpoint of, hey, I have this new tool, this new script. AI can make it, people can use it more effectively, more quickly, because they don't have to learn, they don't have to install a Python environment, they don't have to install PowerShell if it's a PowerShell script. They don't have to find the script, run it, figure out, what input do I need, what does that need to look like, et cetera. AI will help, just do all that stuff on the back end. They can just type in some, natural query language stuff and make effective use of that a lot quicker. So essentially, we're trying to enable our analysts. This is an example of a logic app that I wrote utilizing AI, and in this case, CrowPilot. Essentially, all it does is it grabs some IOCs out of like Microsoft's IOC feed. You could do anything, and then based on those IOCs, the top 10 or whatever it might be, send those to CrowdStrike and block it. So this is, again, plumbing all these different things together, all via natural query language. You don't have to be an expert in some of these things. That increases your team's capability to create these store automations, these logic apps, et cetera, because they don't have to know all the code and plumbing underneath. They can be more effective just for a natural query language. So you take that programming language out of it. So in general, kind of what are you going to tell your boss about these, why you might want to do it from a selling point perspective is, you can maintain or increase your quality of investigations. So you talked about that, the repeatability of scripts. That's why scripts are effective. That's going to help with fewer business impacts if you get through stuff quicker, investigations quicker, or you're making better calls. You're not isolating a host that doesn't need to be isolated because you don't have all the data. Instead, you're doing all this and you're getting your quality up because everything is being more consistent, less business impact, greater profitability. You're reducing your incident resolution time. Again, because your analysts are more effective at what they're doing, not only from a quality perspective, but time on ticket can be less if the data is already there for them to analyze. Again, increased profitability. More work, same people. Not that we're trying to really turn the screws to people, say you got to do more. We're allowing them to be more effective at their job more quickly. And removing some of those barriers so they can be more effective. You're still always going to have that. You're only so much hours in the day. But still, we can allow, by removing those barriers, they can get more done. And then analyst spin-up time can be reduced. That can be more effective. So as you're hiring folks, to get them actually to be optimal and effective by making this easier, that can definitely be impactful, and you can get them spun up a lot quicker. And you're also, again, if you don't have to hire someone with 15 years of experience in this tool and this tool and this tool and this tool, you're going to be able to find people a little bit more easily. You're going to be able to train them up a little bit more easily, and you're going to allow them to, again, be effective and do their job, which is analyzing data and doing that analysis. And then there's a bunch of other stuff you could probably tell your boss. But again, a lot of it is revolving around profitability and having that discussion about how it's going to be better for the organization as a whole. Because that's what they're focusing on most of the time is the bottom dollar. So a little bit of wrap up. AI is going to play an important role in SecOps future, whether we like it or not. So if you can drive that conversation, it's going to be much more beneficial to you. SIEM and data lake, needs to be a part of a data-centric architecture. And AI is a component, and it can feed all of these. It can work within all of these. It can help have your team be more effective. You also need to balance cost, maintenance, and ease of use, and you need to go beyond prompts. And so, again, you can have all this chat interface. That's great, but a lot of the power is going to be in being able to spin up these SOAR capabilities, being able to do a whole bunch of other stuff to integrate with your AI. Again, not necessarily taking over a full investigation, but allowing your, let's say your SIM, you can go automatically via natural language, your analysts can go and enrich data and set up automations to enrich that data. So the next time an incident fires with a username, it's going to grab 15 other pieces of information, run 15 other tools that they set up all via natural language. They don't have to be experts in order to enrich the data. The data will be enriched, and so then when they get to that ticket, everything they need to know about what's going on is at their fingertips. They don't have to go do it. They don't have to do a lookup in virus total against a hash, or see what caps this person might have been blocked in. All this stuff can be available to them, and they're making use of AI in order to enrich that data automatically via SOAR and logic apps and other types of automations. And again, moving to a data-centric architecture can be really important. So definitely take a look at that. I'm happy to talk through why we think that's on a different topic, on a different day, but why that's is so important and can be so impactful to organizations in general. But one more reminder, as you're thinking about where is AI going to fit, how is it going to be more effective, your architecture can be very, very impactful to that. So maybe it's an opportunity to, as you're trying to communicate what you want to do from an AI perspective, because companies seemingly right now are willing to throw more money at programs to help you develop your AI. And introduce AI capabilities, you can also wrap that in a discussion. Hey, in order for us to make use of this, because you guys, executives want us to use AI more and more, maybe not for the right reasons, but they want us to use AI and they want to talk about AI because they're hearing all this AI stuff. Wrap your architecture and your data-centric architecture into that. That can help drive, hopefully a few other projects in your arena that'll make you and your team more effective. So, with that, questions. Yeah.
So we have an existing documentation on encyclopedia, right, where we have all of our resources and it tells us when you see something, you go do this. So this, I'm looking at this thing, this is some kind of conversion where we're going to take that out of there and put it into this data lake.
So from a document repository standpoint, so this is where, so are you talking like, it just spits out based on this incident type, here's your workflow? Or are you talking about here's a collection of documents that we have that...
You go to a website, you say, these are the steps you need to do to remediate whatever this thing is.
Okay. I mean, chances are it'd be kind of a mixed bag. You don't necessarily need to move that to a data lake, because that's all a little more workflow-oriented stuff. The data lake would mainly be as much of your... the actual raw, like telemetry data, stuff out of your firewalls, even configuration data, maybe it's your vulnerability data, all that stuff kind of in one area. Where your workflows, that's probably not going to fit in in a true data lake from like a Azure Data Explorer or kind of like big data type of scenario. But with AI, you can still stitch that together. So assuming they have API calls and things like that into this system, you would be able to then, again, hey, I need to carry out these steps. What steps do I know how to take? AI can go look up in that system. Well, here's the steps that you have to take. And either it can go take them, and we've actually seen this and done this at another organization in regards to CAPS itself, is they had internal documentation. Here's what I do. If someone calls in and they're blocked by a CAP, here's the 10 steps I need to take. And AI will go and actually read that document, and then you tell it, yeah, go perform those. So by the time, you can actually plumb that into like a help desk phone too. So when someone's calling in, it can look up what's going on. Did they have any, by using the data lake, did they have any CAP failures at login? Oh, they did? Okay, well, let me run through these 10 steps. So by the time the person picks up the phone, within like 30 seconds, they may have a plan of like, oh yeah, this is the CAP, this is what we need to do. I need to send a ticket over to IT, and they need to modify this CAP in order to get you access. And hold on, just give me 1 minute. So instead of like 10, 15 minutes where they may have to find that document, go run these queries, go do that, plumbing those two solutions together via AI would be, depending on your models, not fairly trivial.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Cool. Well, appreciate it. I do have, if you have any contact or want to contact me, You can reach me on my SRA.io account. I also have a GitHub here. I'll be posting some information, slides and a few other things at the RSS 2025. I might even drop out the script I have from a device code cap checker. It's still going through QA, so you can modify as much as you want. It's fairly effective. It's not 100% just yet. Like I said, I just wanted a proof of concept for this call, but if you want it, or for this talk, but if you want something like that, I'll post that up to there, and you can kind of have at it. But with that, appreciate everyone's time. Hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions on any of this or how to get this set up, or like some guidance, please don't hesitate to reach out. So thank you.